The Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment System is a new assessment designed to more validly measure what students with significant cognitive disabilities know and can do. This training, Writing, Getting Started in Writing Arguments, is one of a series of trainings that support teachers of students with significant cognitive disabilities in their efforts to teach and assess more effectively. Sponsored by a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, this training is part of the professional development efforts of the Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment Consortium. In previous modules, you learned about writing as a strand in the DLM Essential Elements in English Language Arts. And you were introduced to the 4 clusters of essential elements within writing: text types and purposes, production and distribution of writing, research to build and present knowledge, and range of writing. This module focuses within the text types and purposes cluster on the knowledge and skills related to argumentative and persuasive writing. In an earlier module, writing was defined as the process of constructing texts in either print or braille, called traditional orthography, that communicates experiences, thoughts, feelings, and information for diverse audiences and purposes. Argument writing represents a particular type of writing. Students construct texts in traditional orthography that build a case for a particular belief or course of action for increasingly diverse audiences and purposes. Writing arguments ultimately requires that students learn how to explore a topic, collect and evaluate evidence, establish a position, and then explain it to others. For example, Lucy is quite persuasive in convincing Charlie Brown to attempt to kick the football as she holds it. If you are familiar with the Peanuts comics, you know that every time Charlie Brown runs up to kick the ball, Lucy always pulls the ball away. In each comic strip with this routine, Lucy would plead, beg, coax, taunt, dare, and ultimately persuade Charlie Brown that this time would be different. Her case was not based on evidence, but rather appealing to Charlie Brown's perpetual optimism and faith in human beings. Persuasive writing is based on a selection of the most favorable evidence, appealing to the audience's emotions, or using style to persuade readers to believe something. The singular purpose of persuasive writing is to be convincing. Advertising and propaganda are 2 forms of persuasive writing. Argument, on the other hand, is focused on appeals to logic. It requires and supports critical thinking. An argument begins with a claim that is based on evidence. For example, we believe someone may be guilty because he was found with the victim's property at a pawn shop. His fingerprints were found in the victim's home, and he cannot verify his whereabouts at the time of the crime. A well-framed argument explains how the evidence supports the claim. In this case, it's not his property, so why is he trying to sell the exact items that were stolen? A well-framed argument considers alternative interpretations. For example, are he and the victim friends? Was he really trying to sell the items? Finally, a well-framed argument seeks probable truth. In the end, without an eyewitness or a confession, we are never sure of an individual's guilt, but fingerprints, alibis, DNA, and other evidence are gathered to support a case for guilt or innocence. Pause for activity 1. Argument writing requires complex forms of critical thinking. Identifying a reasonable claim that can be supported by evidence, exploring competing claims, considering logical inferences to support the claims and challenge competing claims, and sequencing all of these ideas in a logical manner. Argument writing represents a significant challenge to any student. In fact, it's not expected of students without disabilities before sixth grade in most college and career readiness standards. So, how do we help students with significant cognitive disabilities learn to write arguments? When you write arguments, you begin with basic human needs and wants. What we learn through experience is how to express those needs and wants more conventionally, so that they can be understood more clearly by others. We learn to say or communicate with symbols, I'm hungry, instead of crying. I want to ride in the swing instead of pushing or hitting, and so on. Argument writing begins by using what is familiar to students, expressing needs and wants, and teaches them to express these as conventional written texts. At a little higher level, students regularly make choices or express preferences throughout their day. Do you want to wear your red shirt or your blue shirt? Do you want pretzels or crackers for snack? Do you want to listen to me read this book or that book? Again, this very familiar interaction pattern can be shaped into conventional, written statements of preference that form the basis of learning to write arguments. Preferences can be shaped further into opinions. Children can move from, I want chips, not pretzels, to expressing the opinion that chips taste better than pretzels. Writing about these opinions helps students express their view or judgment about something. But this writing is still subjective, not necessarily based in fact. Opinions form the basis of persuasion. As noted earlier, persuasion may include facts, but its sole aim is to convince others, often by any means necessary. Argument is the final step here. Argument goes beyond persuasion. When writing an argument, writers try to convince an audience of the logic of a belief or course of action. Arguments rely on verifiable evidence, build a logical case, consider alternative explanations, and so on. In the predictable chart writing module, you learned what predictable chart writing is and the 5 steps in creating and using predictable charts with your students. We use predictable charts in this context to help students understand that their spoken, signed, augmented, or even non-conventional gestural or vocalized communications can be expressed as written statements. For example, predictable chart writing enables us to build on snack time as an initial step toward argument writing by helping students state wants and needs. The teacher might say, watch while I write the beginning of our sentence. I want. Then she shows students a card with a student photo and name and says, whose name and picture is this? One student, Aaron, squeals with delight. The teacher continues, okay, Aaron, do you want pretzels, applesauce, crackers, or yogurt? Pointing to each of the items. As she points to pretzels a second time, Aaron again squeals in delight. The teacher replies, okay, Aaron, pretzels it is. Let's write that on our chart. Pretzels. Let's read Aaron's sentence together. I want pretzels. She points and reads aloud, deliberately making sure the students are attending. The teacher uses a different color for each child to provide one more set of clues to remember what the words say. The process continues as each child makes a choice. The group follows along as the teacher reads the completed chart aloud, encouraging the students to read along, and then everyone has their snack. Other opportunities might include choosing play equipment for recess, indicating hot lunch or cold lunch, making choices for center or free time, choosing a location to work, and so on. Each predictable chart provides opportunities for students to begin to learn not only letters, words, and concepts, but also the structure of a written need or want, a tentative first step toward writing arguments. Moving students toward writing their own texts, arguments or otherwise, is a long process. Teachers can help by providing rich content of interest to children. Joel was a student on the autism spectrum who had a fascination with animals. His teacher spent a great deal of time reading and discussing picture books, watching National Geographic's kids' videos about animals of interest, and creating predictable charts with I feel, I like, I want, I need. You can see how these experiences then shaped the content and form of Joel's initial independent draft, composed using letter by letter spelling and whole word access from his augmentative communication device. He wrote, GeoKids. I like GeoKids. I feel excited. I want GeoKids for Christmas. Teachers can help students write more independently by assisting them in thinking about what they know. What students know is what they have experienced directly in life or indirectly through books, movies, and conversations. Teachers who regularly help children brainstorm what they know about a topic before writing help children consider both what they know and what they may want to say in their writing. In Zeb and Lisa's class, the teacher asked students to brainstorm what they knew on post-it notes. Zeb made a list of vehicles: Maverick car, Airstream, Chevy, Y650 helicopter, Honda CRF 100 dirt bike. Lisa and Zeb and their classmates then organized their post-its with varying degrees of adult assistance as needed, in the order they want to write about them. The class then wrote 3 drafts after this planning process. Zeb's first draft was a series of I like different kinds of vehicles. These drafts were shared with classmates, and when Zeb found out that a classmate liked dachshunds, he decided he did too, and revised his text by adding the dog. Zeb chose to gather illustrations while some students drew. The third and final draft was composed with the assistance of spell checking and Google, where Zeb and a teacher's assistant looked up spellings of the vehicle names. This led to Zeb occasionally changing to a new vehicle he decided he liked even better. Needs and want statements can be turned into opinions by using the verb like or adding the conjunction because. They can be turned into statements of preference by incorporating comparisons like is better, bigger than. Aaron composed this opinion text about the show The Lion King. Prior to this, his strategy had been labeling pictures. His text, Lion King, Fun, lacks explicit detail, but his message is clear to familiar audiences, and his writing is becoming more elaborated as he learns to write his opinions. Mentor texts are a useful means by which to teach students how to write more conventionally, more clearly, and more effectively. Ralph Fletcher describes mentor texts as reading that inspires writing. Mentor texts provide models of possibility for novice writers. They offer possibilities regarding sentence structure, vocabulary, topic, grammar, and more. Mentor texts, if selected carefully and taught well, show students how to write in a new way. As Fletcher says, mentor texts help writers shed their old writing skin and grow a better one. Mentor texts can be used to help children learn to write more clearly about their needs, wants, feelings, and opinions, and how to support those statements with reasons for the need, want, feeling, or opinion. They can help developing writers learn how to persuade more convincingly and ultimately write more reasoned and evidence-based arguments. Mentor text can take a variety of forms. For example, Like, Not Like on the Tar Heel Reader website is an easy-to-read text that can be used to help students understand that there are similarities and differences in what people like and do not like. I Like Me by Nancy Carlson works well as a mentor text that helps students learn to provide reasons to support opinion writing or statements of preference. Pause for activity 2. As with all writing instruction, teachers must be tolerant of error in order to enable students to grow as independent writers. Danny and Charlie, classmates who are best friends, collaborated in composing a text explaining reasons why baseball is their favorite sport. After their teacher modeled the use of the word because and the inclusion of reasons to support an opinion, She allowed the boys to work together without further support. Danny and Charlie do not demonstrate a clear understanding of a rationale initially. Several pages of their first draft follow. I like baseball because I like the field. I like baseball because of Yankee Stadium. I like baseball because of bats. Their first 4 attempts are simply, I like baseball because I like, and then they label whatever is seen in the accompanying illustration. That the pictures support the writing, but not always the understanding of the desired content, is seen on this page. Danny was so distracted by the illustration that he forgot the writing task and sentence structure and just wrote his opinion, ice cream delicious. On the final page of the text, Charlie produced an opinion with a reason. I like the fans because they go wild. Danny does likewise, writing, I like the trophy because it's about champions. Helping students generate their own topics, brainstorming ideas related to topics, supporting topical thinking with photos, and allowing or encouraging collaboration are all ways of helping students begin to understand the conceptual demands of stating an opinion or preference and providing a rationale. It is also critical that we model thinking aloud and writing this way whenever possible. When students write about what they know and care about to audiences they know and care about, writing quality often improves. Blake's teacher provided a simple frame for him to think about what he was enjoying at camp to explain to his mother how his week was going. Blake wrote, Dear Mom, camp is fun. I like the horses. The kids here are amazing. Scott is my friend. The food is yummy. The weather is terrible. From Blake. In this early writing, Blake expressed his opinion. Camp is fun. With some structure provided by his teacher, he also provided reasons to support his opinion. Helping students brainstorm ideas, make lists, and use assistive pencils are all ways to help them improve their writing without providing frames or sentence starters. In the middle of one summer, Joel decided to write about Christmas with his peers. His teacher helped the group generate a list of what they liked about Christmas. This student then worked without further assistance to write using both letter-by-letter spelling and word prediction. He started with, I like Christmas. I like tree. Then his teacher prompted him, Don't forget to tell what you like about Christmas. Why do you like Christmas? And the student added, You put presents by the tree. Here is a process that led to greater independence in writing and demonstrated that a high school student with significant cognitive disabilities was ready to learn how to write persuasive essays, even though he was still struggling with spelling, sentence structure, and other basic aspects of writing. Zach was attending a literacy camp. Each day, his teacher would have him and the other campers in the group generate ideas about something they had done at camp. Zach generated a list about the camp dance. He wrote, Tina, it was fun. It was cool. He also generated a list about the campout when the weather turned cold and rainy. He wrote, It was bad and cold. It was rotten. The teacher then encouraged students to use their lists to write. Zach's first draft after generating his list about the dance was a love letter to Tina, the girl he danced with. Zach wrote, Dear Tina, I love you. Love, Zach. P.S. See you. Since the group had talked about providing reasons to explain thinking, Zach's teacher had him list reasons why he loved Tina. He wrote, She is adorable. She is a nice lady. Nice dancing. His teacher then assisted him in looking over his 2 idea lists and his first draft of the love letter. Zach was highly motivated to revise since he wanted Tina to be impressed with his letter, which he planned to deliver at lunchtime. After roughly 45 minutes of good effort, he had written, "Dear Tina, you're a nice dancer. You are sweet. You have nice shoes. I love you. Zach." This is an elaborated opinion text explaining the reasons for his love to the girl of his dreams. Tina read the letter and was impressed. Zach then moved to a level of persuasion and sought permission from their parents to share email information. That could easily have been turned into a piece of persuasive writing for Zach. He had a desired outcome he sought from another person. He demonstrated the ability to revise. He just needed to be taught how to shape his reasons in writing to encourage the actions he sought from someone else. Persuasion begins with an issue or a problem. The writer identifies a problem or issue and has an opinion about how to address the problem or issue. The writer then explains the issue relative to their personal perspective and suggests actions supporting the writer's desired outcome. In another module, Writing Text Types and Purposes, Anna and Carrie's email was shared as an example of taking advantage of natural opportunities to encourage writing. Part of it is shared here to show how persuasive writing might be encouraged and supported. The two girls who were attending a literacy camp typed the following email, letter by letter, and collaboratively. Their email to the camp leader read, "Dear Dave, the bugs are everywhere. Don't bite me. Bugs are everywhere. I hate bugs. I don't like bugs. Step on bug. Don't cut me. Seal the door. Anna, Carrie." This is a persuasive letter. The girls would like the camp leader to get rid of the ant problem in their literacy workspace. Their appeals are that they don't like bugs and don't want to get bitten. They want the director to kill the ants and seal the door so that no more ants can come in. As detailed in the previous module, the camp director then replied, and several exchanges occurred between the girls and the camp director. This third email from the girls demonstrates their increasingly sophisticated persuasive arguments. This time, the girls complimented the camp leader at the beginning of the email and again in closing. That is, they understood you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. They added yet another reason for the camp leader to act. The ants were everywhere. This email reads, "Dear Dave, you're really, really funny. We aren't sick. The bugs are in our room. The bugs are everywhere. Kill them. You're so funny. Anna and Carrie Cat." Again, the director replied to the girls and the exchange continued. As the camp leader and the girls' literacy teacher read these emails and observed the girls' relative strengths in communicating their persuasive arguments, but relative challenge with conventional spelling, they decided to introduce word prediction software. As the girls began composing this message, their teacher stopped them after the fourth line and showed them how to use the software. You can observe the impact below the line. "Dear Dave, he is silly. Chocolate ants are disgusting. He's very funny. No way. You have to step on the ants. I love you, Dave. Anna, Carrie Cat." Finally, in the last email the girls wrote, they used word prediction for the entire message. Their final message read, "Dear Dave, thank you for nothing. You are hopeless. We have ants camp over. You are lazier. You not help us. You can make sure ant aren't in our room next year. Your friend, Anna, Carrie Cat." They expressed their frustration with the camp leader's inaction, provided yet one more reason to act, the ants were all over the camp, and encouraged him to make sure the problem didn't reoccur the following year. There are many, many mentor texts for persuasive writing. A few that work with many different age groups and are relatively easy to read aloud to a class, analyze for structure, and then use as models for students to create their own persuasive piece are listed here. Yo Yes by Chris Rashka, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus by Mo Willems, Duck Rabbit by Amy Krauss Rosenthal, Should I Share My Ice Cream by Mo Williams, Click Clack Moo by Doreen Cronin, and I Wanna Iguana by Karen Kaufman Orloff. Persuasive writing, then, begins with opinion. Writers need to identify an issue or problem and explain it in terms that support the action they would like taken to resolve the problem. While evidence is employed, it is only that evidence supportive of the writer's viewpoint. Students with significant disabilities seem to do best with persuasive writing once they can write needs and wants statements and write opinion pieces with reasons. They seem to write best when they are writing for a real audience, even if that audience is less than cooperative. As noted earlier, argument goes beyond persuasion. Writers try to convince an audience of the logic of a belief or course of action. There is greater reliance on verifiable evidence, building a logical case, considering alternative explanations, and so on. Argument is not typically expected or demanded until writers have pretty well established writing skills and habits in middle school and beyond. The easiest place to begin with argument writing is with facts students already know. For example, Felicia is a high school student with significant cognitive disabilities. She uses a voice output augmentative communication system. She became upset upon learning that a friend and a former classmate was placed in a different group for a summer program. In this email, Felicia moves from persuasion toward rudimentary argument. She opens an implied position, stating her concern about Anthony's placement. Her claim is implied that Anthony has been placed in an inappropriate setting. She provides 3 forms of evidence based on her knowledge of the situation. Anthony is unhappy, he doesn't know the other students in the group in which he is currently placed, and he does know students in Felicia's groups. Certainly, there is missing information, and Felicia could strengthen her argument with additional detail and elaboration, and by clarifying her intent. But while her goal is persuasion, she has moved beyond appeals based solely on emotional response. She has anchored her argument in factual evidence, not just her own desires. The teacher responded to Felicia by writing, "Hi, Felicia. I am really looking forward to seeing you at camp next week. I met with Michelle and Scott today, and they said that Anthony was meant to be placed in the Pohai room with us. It was a mistake, and when Anthony comes to camp, he will be in my room. Hope you had a great school year, and I'll see you Monday. Julie." Given the teacher's sensitive and thoughtful response, and the successful outcome from Felicia's perspective, Felicia is likely to be receptive to instruction aimed at improving her ability to frame increasingly elaborate arguments. One useful strategy to assist students in moving beyond persuasion to argument is to require them to consider at least 2 sides of an experience. This draft was the result of class preparation in generating different topics of personal interest, brainstorming lists of good and bad features of one of those topics, writing a draft, seeking peer feedback, and revising. At each step of the process, the emphasis was on clear communication and consideration of both good and bad features. It was not on conventional spelling and grammar. The result for Aaron was that he was able to focus more deeply on his ideas, without his difficulties with grammar and spelling conventions impeding his thinking. The resulting draft reads, "Living in Florida, Good and Bad Things." What it is like to live in Florida? Good idea. Aaron house in Gainesville. Aaron's room and computer room. Aaron's family, Nita, mom and dad in Gainesville. Good things in Orlando. Mom drive to Disney and Universal Studios in SeaWorld. Weather is a bad thing in Florida. Weather in Gainesville, Florida. Hot, windy, rainy, cloudy, and fog. Hurricanes, blowing rain and floods. Bad idea is Florida away from Grandma and Grandpa. They live in Winnipeg, Canada, close to the United States. Living in Florida is good and bad things. This writing is not an argument, but it is an exercise that leads the student to consider any given topic more deeply and broadly, a skill set essential to preparing a defensible argument in the future. Like persuasive writing, there are a variety of mentor texts that can be read and discussed with students to help them begin to develop skills that will help them structure written arguments. The books here represent three very different text structures, are all written at a fairly simple level, and work with a variety of age groups. The important book keeps a very similar information presentation structure on each page, while on each page identifying the essence of the central object. For example, the important thing about a spoon is that you eat with it. In the book, You Can't Go to School Naked, multiple forms of evidence are presented in support of the school rule that clothes must be worn. Dear Mr. Blueberry is structured as a series of letters sent back and forth between a student who thinks she has seen a whale in her pond and her teacher who presents multiple forms of evidence explaining why that is highly unlikely. These last two books provide different text structures but make clear the necessity of using multiple forms of evidence in order to argue a logical case to a disbelieving audience. Their humor is also engaging. Argument writing is a cognitively demanding form of writing. There are many different kinds of writing and writing activities that teachers can engage students in to move them toward writing arguments. These include group predictable charts, needs and want statements, opinion and preference writing, and persuasive writing. As teachers begin to engage students in argument writing, they should seek out real opportunities and audiences, incorporate classroom instruction aimed at getting students to look at a topic from two or more perspectives, and introduce mentor texts that demonstrate some of the ways that arguments can be structured. This module focused within the text type and purposes cluster on the knowledge and skills related to one of three types of writing identified: argumentative and persuasive writing. It focuses on issues specific to helping students with significant cognitive disabilities get started with argument writing. You are encouraged to review the other writing modules, which talk in more depth about best practices in each of the writing clusters, as well as issues and strategies relevant to other text types. For more information about the Dynamic Learning Maps alternate assessment system and to access additional learning modules, please go to dynamiclearningmaps.org. Thank you.